Hey there, my name is Kelly Dale with Off the Beaded Path. Today is the part 2 video for the Bloom bracelet. So what you're going to need today is you are going to need some 3mm bicones and some of your size 11 seed beads. Now if you want to, you can use 2 colors of a size 11 seed bead. I'm only going to use one today, but I will show you my sample from yesterday that has the 2 colors so you can see that one as well. The sides of this bracelet are actually from a project I did way back in 2014, the Infinity Earrings. So I'm going to refresh you today on that and show you how we're actually going to finish off the top to connect it to the sides. So I'm starting out with 2 yards of thread on my needle and my 11/0 seed beads. So let's get started. So to start, you're going to pick up 2 size 11 seed beads and let those come down to the end of your thread. You're going to come back up through the first bead again. So just that first one, hold it in place and pull it so that you have 2 beads that will sit side by side. Now go down through the second bead, thread on 1 11/0. Currently your thread is coming out of the bottom of that bead, so just take your needle and come right back down through it to make a circle, and then come up through the next bead, and then we got to do this one more time. So pick up 1 bead, we're going to come right back up through the one I'm coming out of, and then go down through the last bead. So now you have a ladder of 4. So I'm going to fold the piece together so that the tail thread is coming out of 1 bead here and the working thread is coming out of another bead. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go up through the bead on the left, down through the bead on the right, and then back up through the bead on the left. So now that will give you a little box of 4 with your tail coming out of one side of the bead and your working thread out of the other. At this point, we're going to be picking up pairs. So we're going to pick up 2 11s. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come right down through. It doesn't matter if you start upwards or to this side. I'm going to go down through the bead on the right, but whichever way you start, you have to continue in that direction. So that your 2 new beads will sit on top of your 2 older beads. Now you come up through the next bead, pick up 2, and go down through the next bead, which is going to be the 4th bead in that first little circle. Now we're ready to step up. And I know that because if I try to come through the top bead here on this next stack, you're going to see the thread diagonally across. We don't want that. So we're going to go right up through the first 2 beads here on the next stack. Now one thing that you can do as well is you can go ahead and count out 4 seed beads. This goes really quickly, so it's up to you how you want to do it, but you'll know once you've used those 4, it's time to do the step up. So you pick up 2, go down through your next bead, come up through the next bead, then you pick up 2 and go down through the next bead. So I know that each little row I'm putting on 4 beads here. I've used my 4 beads, so it's time for my step up. And to do that step up, let me get it, there we go. I'm coming out of this bead right here. So I'm going to come to the bead right next to it, and I'm going to come up through that bead and the bead right above it. So that way it steps me up to start my next row of herringbone. So from where I'm coming out, I'm going to pick up 2 11s. I'm going to come right down through the next bead, pull that thread, and you'll see that right now the stacks are kind of split, but as you work each row, it's going to pull these stacks together. I'm going to come up through the next bead here, pick up 2 11s, come down through the last bead on that row, and then again I'm ready for the step up. So to do the step up, I'm coming out of this bead, I'm going to come to the bead right next to it, and I'm going to come up through those 2 beads in that stack. So you can see you have a little tiny 4-row herringbone thing so far. You want to continue doing this herringbone stitch until you have 56 rows. Now, if you want to, I've done a single color here. If you want to, you can also do 2 colors like I've done in the original sample. I've done 1 row black, 1 row silver, and that kind of helps you too doing it the first time, because you really can see, you know, if making sure you're getting the right row when you get to the end. So now I'm ready to connect the 2 ends. So I'm going to go ahead and get my needle threaded, and this will be a good opportunity. Everybody always says I make this look so easy, but I see so many people who just try to jab it. If you'll just take your thread, put it between your fingers, and lay the eye of the needle right down on that thread, it will automatically go in, and it's very, very easy to thread your needles this way. Now comes a little bit of a hard part. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim this shorter tail. You can stitch through a few beads if you want to, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim that. You want to make sure that your tube is completely straight. You don't want it twisted whatsoever as you start to work. So right now, my thread, if I take my tube here and I put it together, put the ends together, making sure they stay straight, my thread is coming out on this bottom right hand corner. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come straight across, and I'm going to go through the bottom right hand bead on this first side and pull this through. So you can see that it will connect those 2 beads. Now before I pull this through, I'm going to come up through the bead here on the left hand side. So it's the same stack of beads, it's the bottom, I'm just coming on the left hand side. Now before I pull this any tighter, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through the bottom left hand bead on this left hand stack on this side, so that when you pull it, you've got your 2 threads there, and when you pull, that brings the bottom stacks together. So now go through the bead right above where you're exiting, and you can actually go straight across to go through the top bead directly across from where your thread's coming out. And pull that, and you can see there how we're starting to get that. And so then I'm going to come through the bead right next to where I'm coming out. I'm going to go through that bead, and then the last bead here on this end, and I'm going to pull that tight so that now you can't see where I started this little ring and where I ended this little ring. Now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to reinforce this connection and tie off this thread. At this point, you have your ring complete and you're ready to do the finishing touch to be able to cinch this in the middle. So I'm using 2 yards of thread, and I actually have the thread doubled. So when you double the 2 yards, you'll have 1 yard actually with your needle in the center. You'll have 1 yard on each side. And I'm going to start out with 4 3mm. Now you don't have to do a double thread, but the thing that I found when working with these crystals, especially on something that's going to be a tight fit around this, is that it's much better for me to do this doubled thread because I feel more secure. The first time I ever tried to do this and I didn't have a doubled thread, I ended up breaking the thread and had to start all over. So once I've got it tied into a circle, I'm going to go right back up through the 1 3mm next to the knot. I'm going to pick up 3 3mm. My thread's coming out of the top, so I'm going to come straight back up through the same way so that it will make a circle. Then I'm going to go through the two of the beads I just added. So I'm going to be going through this bead and this bead. And I do not recommend going through them at the same time. I recommend just one at a time here. I'm going to pick up 3 3mm. Thread's coming out of the bottom of the bead, so I'm going to come right back down through it to make that circle. And then I'm going to go through 2 beads that I just added. So I'm going through this bead and this bead. So 1 and 2. So this gives me 3 right angle weave boxes, and I'm going to continue till I have 6. So we just continue picking up 3. I'm going to come right back up through, then through the 2 beads that I just added. So 1, 2. That gives me 4 boxes. This will be 5, and I need 1 more. Now, depending upon the brand of bead that you use, so if you use a Swarovski, a Thunder Polish, if you change it up and decide you don't want to use Bicones and you use like a fire polish round bead or a pearl, you may have to change up the counts for your right angle weave boxes to actually fit around your beadwork. But that's something you'll just kind of have to play with. So you can see now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. I'm going to go ahead and trim my tail threads. And like I said, if you want to, you can definitely stitch those through. I'm going to take and squeeze this right here in the middle. And I'm going to wrap the right angle weave strip around it, just like this. And it's going to kind of be hard to see, but I'm coming out of the bottom of the end of my strip here. There we go. I'll just open it up. I'm going to come up through the bead on the beginning of the strip, and I'm going to pull this. Now when you pull it, you'll want to make sure to get these pieces together and pulled tight so that it will finish up your strip. And you're really going to have to get it pulled nice and tight here. Okay, now I'm going to pick up another 3mm. I'm coming out of the top of the 3mm here. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come down through the one on the other end. So when you pull this thread, and you pull it nice and tight, this takes a little bit of maneuvering here to get it all together, you will have your strip of right angle weave. Now I go through this last box one more time just to reinforce it. And then once you go through and reinforce it, you're ready for the final step of the embellishment, and that all you're going to do is pick up an 11 and go straight through the next 3mm here on this outer edge. An 11 and go through, and you'll just keep picking up your 11s and going through the next 3mm. And then once you've got back to the beginning to that first 3mm again, then all you'll need to do is just go up through a 3mm and then through a 3mm here along the top edge. And then all you're doing is you're picking up an 11 and then going through a next 3mm here along the edge. And you're going to go all the way around, just putting these 11s in place along the edge. And then once you've gone all the way around, you're ready to tie off the thread. There we go. So this is what I have so far, and I've actually gone ahead and made the second one so that I have the pair finished. So you'll have to make 2 of these because you're going to go on each side of your bracelet. Now to finish this off, I'm just going to do some half hitch knots, and I always have people ask about it. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the thread that is right here between the bicone and this 11-0 seed bead. I'm going to pull that thread, leave myself a little circle, stick the needle through, and pull. And then I will stitch through a few beads, go under the thread between the bicone and the 11, leave yourself a little circle, stick the needle through the circle, pull it out of your hands just like that. That is required. And then stitch through some beads. Now I feel really confident with this because I've used a double thread, so I'm just going to trim that off. I have my second one, and then I'm ready to show you how we're actually going to connect these to the strips that we made yesterday for the top. Now that you have the infinity links completed, we need to attach them like I did here on this side. So I've gone back to the top of my component piece with my strip of beads here. Now the strip of beads that I made are 10 beads on each side, and that's what I found works best, that will fit snugly around these little infinity links. So you actually want to take your link that you've made, and you are going to stick the needle through the open part of the link here, so that when you pull it through and you fold it over, you'll now zip it into place, just like regular peyote stitch. So what you want to do is, I'm coming out here on the end, and this is going to be a little hard to see, but I'm going to take it, I'm coming out here, I'm going to take the needle, and I'm going to come through this bead here on the base, this far right one. Alright, then I'm going to take, I'm not going to pull it tight because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. I'm going to take it now, and I'm going to come through the next bead here at the top and pull that. There we go. So I'm going to come through this one. That's the second bead on the strip, and I'm going to put my finger there and pull. Okay, so now let me thread my needle again real quick. It come unthreaded, so you will see again how I thread my needle. Okay, so now I've come through that second bead here on the top, so now I'm going to come to the third bead here on the bottom and go through the third bead on the bottom. This is just like zipping up regular peyote stitch. Then I'm going to go through the fourth bead on the top, so that now when you pull that, you can't tell where it started and where it ended. So you'll want to go through and reinforce this several times, and then I would go through the beads here along the edge just to kind of reinforce those as well. So at this point of the project, we have made our top part of the bracelet, we've made the sides of the bracelet, and now we've got them connected. So tomorrow is going to be the final video for this little mini series, and I'm going to show you the clasp part of this bracelet. The great part about this bracelet is going to be really good for anybody who's allergic to metals, because there's not going to actually be a clasp. We're going to make our own, and so I think it's going to be really great. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.